Red Dog Motorsports. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. We're still working on Tickel Pickle. In the last video, we removed the body, set it to the side so that we could work on finishing the chassis. Since I last left you, I've been doing a lot of little detail work. Not really film worthy, but stuff that must be done. Just like welding on the little bolts like this for places that I'm gonna attach tabs to get the wiring and fuel lines and all of that attached to the chassis. I got to go through and do all of those. I got the rear brake lines on, had to make a bracket to keep them from touching and rubbing and bouncing. Weld a couple of bolts to the axle so that I could also attach little brackets and tabs. We got the shocks, the rear shocks mounted, which really wasn't much, but it was a lot of raising it up and down, making sure clearances, all of that good stuff. My buddy Mike came over. We bent the tubing for the coolant. I'm going to get into that. We're going to be pulling the motor and transmission here a little bit so I can lay that in and get it in proper place. And we're going to build some brackets and get it welded up. I am going to weld it to the chassis. There's really no point in making it removable. If I end up switching over to a front radiator at some point, I can just cut it out. It won't be a big deal. We're going to work on getting a drive shaft hoop on the front. I got a piece in here that we're going to weld in on top of the rear one just to make sure that the plumbing that's going to be above it for the air ride doesn't get hit if the drive shaft U-joint goes out and I lose a drive shaft. It'll bang around in there, but it won't hit the lines and take out my suspension with it. That's really kind of about where we're at. I'm working on the front right now, getting some of the sheet metal welded in, because once I remove the motor, I'm gonna have to do the back side of it all and get it all cleaned up. We're gonna have to get it ready for paint. That reminds me, I full welded the exhaust too. I pulled it out, got it fully welded, so it's all ready to go back in once we get a little further along. Still waiting on a couple of fittings. I need the fittings for the transmission cooler lines in the front. Once those are in, I can measure for the back and go ahead and flare them. We'll get them pushed underneath where they go, all that good stuff. We can get them attached to the chassis. They will be done. I got the hold down bracket for the battery done. So yeah, we're getting there. Everything's, I think this is going to start going a little bit quicker, I hope, now that we're getting the big projects done as a bunch of little ones. I still have some finish welding to do back here, but I got to pick it up and remove the bags to get to it. So I've been kind of waiting on it to be one of the last things we do before we paint the chassis. But that's where we're at. And of course, I got to say thank you to all of you for tuning in. Comments, if you would, give me some. I always enjoy them. It takes a lot of money to make all this happen. So I've been looking for ways to make extra money. So if you got a moment, I'd like to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. Hey everybody, it's bright and early on a Wednesday morning. And behind you is the Tickel Pickle. In running, driving form, complete as far as round one is concerned. I just wanted to break in real quick. I haven't posted for about 3-4 weeks. And that's because I misjudged the amount of time it was going to take me to do some things, and I just didn't have time to sit down in the mornings and edit video. So while I have filmed a little bit, I haven't been editing. I've been out here working since, I'd get up about this time, 5 o'clock in the morning, come out here and work on the Tickel Pickle, and I'd work till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I've been just thrashing to get this thing done. I did make it. It is ready to go. I'm very excited. We leave today and drive, we'll probably drive somewhere north of Atlanta and then finish out tomorrow getting up into Illinois. Friday morning, I will be there with everybody else in Illinois at Psycho Silo Saloon, driving over to Davenport, Iowa for the prejudging. And then Saturday, we'll be at Psycho Silo Saloon all day long with everybody else. Really looking forward to this. It's going to be an outstanding event. But I wanted to give you a quick explanation of why I haven't posted up in quite some time. And that's it. Just, I'm a single person doing all the work, all the editing, all of the stuff that everybody else does, just like many of you do. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. But with that, I'm going to put you back to the regular show, and I hope you enjoy it. But the rest of the videos will come out soon, and we look forward to seeing you on the next project. Have a good one. Okay, update. So I've got the motor pulled. You can see here on the chassis, motor sitting over there. Chassis empty. Got a little welding done on the front. I got it welded. I need to grind it all. We need to take care of the back, get the cutouts for the belts done correctly. It's all just roughed in right now. But what we're working on right now is this tubing here. My buddy Mike and I bent this up the other day. It actually came out pretty good. This is the engine end. So what I need to do now is cut this piece somewhere right in here. And I need to cut it again back in here. And that'll get it so it's going to fit in the chassis. I would try to point it out. Well, let's see, we can do this. So it's going to start up in this area. The 90 is going to come up right here. The other 90 going that way should lay right in there. It'll come back, go down, then go up, and then through. So that'll make more sense once we get it in the chassis. It is going to be spaced out. I'll have spacers welded in between it, and then it's going to be welded to the chassis itself. So lots of little brackets to make, lots of little welding to do. But first, let me make these cuts. We'll get it sitting in the chassis, and then probably have to swing the motor back in, make sure I get it clearance, marked, all that good stuff of where it's going to actually reside permanently, and we'll go from there. All right, I've had the motor out, put it back in, and things are moving forward. We're getting there. I got a little bit of a problem up here where the tubing crosses over. Should be right about there. Goes forward and goes over the top of the front cross member. It's causing the pipe to braze up. Apparently I didn't plan real well for this, but I need to get this down, and then it'll clear with all the space that I want. It clears right now, but it's not what I want. So gonna have to get it on the bender, put a kink in it, maybe get some heat to it, bend it the other way, and get it to step up and hit that a little better. After that, I'll have to build the spacers and get them tacked in so that it gets locked in place, and then we'll start finishing out the rest of it to get it all where it needs to be to connect to the radiator, which is going to involve bending some other tubing. Some I may sleeve and bend in steel, and then we'll have to measure and make sure that we can meet the rest up in rubber, silicone to be specific. But got to get it in place first, and then I'll know what I need to order for the rest of it. Right now I'm going to get some lunch. I'm hungry. All right, so I pulled the tubing out after I pulled the motor back out. I got one bend of the 45 up that I was looking for done on the bender, but I can't bend it back down to get where I need to be because it's just too tight for the bender to get in here with the other bends. I could have done it if I'd known I needed it earlier. So we're going to use the old heat and try it that way. Hopefully I don't jack this up too badly. Got the old oxy-acetylene torch out. I've got the angle finder on it. I'll just work at heating this whole thing up. We'll see how it goes. I did measure, so, oops. I did measure, come on, quit creeping. The flats before I did this to make sure that it was level to the floor, that kind of thing. And we're at like 2.3 degrees. So when I bend this, it doesn't need to go to 0. It needs to go to 2.3. Right now it's sitting at like 40 something. We'll get some heat in this. If I quit talking, it's because I'm concentrating. Hopefully I can get enough oomph in it. There we go, we're getting a little bit. Gotta work it slow. Try not to kink it too bad. It's getting there. It's gonna have a little bit of a kink in it. Give that a shot. I got one. Yeah, we'll have to let it cool. Hopefully it'll flow enough. If not, I'll have to do something different. Where are you all going? Did you see anything interesting while you were down there? Alright, it was going good until it wasn't. I've got the front pretty much all ironed out. Everything's where it needs to be. I need to weld a piece of 3/4 to that one. That'll just make it the right size for the flexi pipe. Need to weld a bead on this one so that the hosing has something to grab onto. Need to put in some support brackets and weld it to the chassis. Back here, we'll put a 3/4 or 1 3/4 sleeve on that. Weld it up. Should be good to go. That comes back to here. Need to cut this piece off, weld a bead around it, and then just get the pipe fit, hosing. I was working on this side, going from here, around, and over to there to connect to the other one. I was using some aluminum. Had a lot of bends going on, as you can see. And then it got caught, tore it, and so all of it's wasted. Don't know what I'm gonna do now. A buddy of mine gave that to me, it was free. So now I gotta get something. I don't know, I'll have to look around. I might have a piece of 1.5 up in the Connex out of steel. Can use it, it's not preferred, but I can. So, let's get something done. I'm gonna break, go get dinner, and come back at this tomorrow in a clear mind. It's hot, humid, I'm tired. Let's get to it. All right, I suppose you guys all are wondering how we did. We did acceptable. And by that, I mean, I only had one mistake, but I was able to fix it, so it all worked out. So my mistake was, that bend was the last one I did, and I needed to bend it down, and I bent it up. So I had to add a bend in here to get it bent the right way, but it fits. We need to cut off back down here so that it all will fit together, so that it can be sleeved and welded. we're just using 1 3/4 sleeves, something about this long, then I'll weld all the way around them. Like I said, as long as I can get them tight, we'll check them with air after I weld them, and then spot check it, all that good stuff. I got one to do here. This end still needs to be cut off. Sorry. That end. That's the one we're talking about. That end needs to be cut off. I got a real bad habit of holding the camera and not looking through it while I point at something, instead of looking through the camera so that I have the same view as you. That's why you guys are always just looking over here and there and everywhere. Because I have control and I don't do a good job. The one thing I haven't decided how to fix, I'm not happy with the heat bend that we did. It's probably fine. Don't like the way it looks. Don't like the way I think it's gonna function. So I gotta figure out, maybe bend some 1 3/4 at the proper bend I need, and then weld it in. It just, every time I do a sleeve, that's just one more area that I gotta deal with a leak or a possible leak. However, once I get all of that done, we can weld it to the chassis, which in reality, battery died. I don't understand. It'll say it's got 25%, a quarter of its battery life, and then it dies. It says low battery and shuts off. So someone's lying. At any rate, back to the welding. Gotta weld it to the chassis, but I really think we only need to weld back in here just to keep it steady and straight. Probably in this area, up here, and then just up there. The rest of it should all support itself. The water weight's not going to be that much. It shouldn't bounce that much. So it's not like I need to do every 6 feet. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weld them together in a couple of spots with some spacers. We already talked about that. But that all in all will make it one solid unit. I do have to, each one of the 4 ends, I got to weld full circle around them just to give it a bead so that the silicone pipe has something, you know, when you hose clamp it, it can't blow off. But yeah, we're getting close. So I need to do that. Then we need to finish the rear brake line. The fitting came in for it, so that'll finish out brakes front and rear. The battery cable, the positive, came in, so we need to run it and make both ends from the starter back, get it attached to the chassis, finish the hydraulic, the fluid lines for the transmission cooler, basically flare them, get them in their place, get them attached to the chassis. Those need to be removable, of course. We got some metal work to do up in the front to get it cleaned up. Need to finish getting the fuel lines attached to the chassis, run all of the air lines. Still a lot to do, but they're getting easier and quicker and whatnot. So I really think I'm getting pretty confident that Saturday or so we'll be dropping the body back on this and moving on to bigger and better things, or at least closer to getting it running. So, oh yeah, the wiring's got to be put in. And if we don't get to it this week, that's fine. We're just going to keep plugging away, getting everything knocked out one at a time. And that's all we can do. So let's get to it. Okay, so right after I spoke to y'all last, I had great intentions, great hopes of doing great things, and I promptly climbed onto the struggle bus and stayed there most of the day. I got in an argument with the bus driver. I lost. Missed my stop several times, didn't get off. And yeah, it went like that. Did finally have some success, but then there was the soap incident. Yeah, I know. How do you get soap in your eye, which is what I did, in a shop full of metal? Well, the last time I was using my sander, the belt sander, I had put some Irish Spring on it so that it wouldn't clog up, because I was grinding aluminum. And somehow, when I was grinding some tubing, The soap got off, hit me here on the cheek and went uphill. I don't know how it did it, but it did. Got in the corner of my eye, so that stung. I may have cried a little. It was the soap, not the stinging. And then we had some success. Then there was the squirrel incident. Dang tree rats up there. They're starting to eat the pine cones. And one of them's over here in the tree dropping them on the Connex, which is ringing like a bell every time he does it. So of course I don't, you know, you hear big thumps, you don't know what they are, you got to go check it out. So then there were words. Well, he won that argument too. So yeah, that's been my day. So I had great hopes of having things pretty well wrapped up in whatnot and just doing details tomorrow, and that's not where we are. I'm at the point that I thought I was at this morning. At the end of today, I'm at it. But I'll show you what I got. It's looking better. I'm much more happy with it, or much happier with it than I was earlier. So let's see what we got. All right, so we got the tubing coming up. It turns, it's gonna have two couplers right in here. The two pieces in the back, rather than connect them all the way through, they connect to the couplers, then they bolt to the chassis. That was just sitting there. But that's gonna help me give me some slack. You know, when you're trying to put tubes on both ends, you need a little bit of slack. But this one's already connected. I still got to get a piece of flex tubing to go from here to there. Probably a little bit of an adapter. We got to make the brackets and weld these in place. And then here, that's what started the whole ruckus. That's where that piece I heated up and looked like Fido's derriere, and I cut it out. I bent a piece of 1 3/4 as a sleeve, put it on there, and it completely messed everything up. I was short, I was unsquare, it was a mess. So I ended up cutting it all out and then redoing everything, so it looks good now. The piece up front here, I got to figure out how to snake it through and what to do about that. Water neck, that's my biggest issue right now. The ideas I've had to kind of discard, so we'll figure it out. But tomorrow we'll come in, we'll finish getting all of the ends welded up so that the rings are on them, to keep the hose retainer rings, whatever you want to call them. And we'll do a couple other things, but it's now moving along. So we'll catch you tomorrow morning. While I'm thinking of it, here's a joke for you. Why did the chicken cross the road? To show the possum that it could be done. I thought that was funny. All right, so I talked about doing gussets. Figured I'd show you how I'm coming up with these. Real simple. I'm using, this is the excess left over from cutting out my body mounts on the plasma table. But what it does leave me is some little squares or triangles, whatever. They've got the wrong curve to them. I'm not a fan of them curving that way. I want them to go the other way. I like to use little French curve templates. I just bought a pack of them here a while back at the art store many years ago. And I just find a line on here where I think it looks good. And typically, in order to repeat it, I'll mark on here my start and stop point. I'll mark it on the template itself so that I know where I started and where it needs to stop. And then I just draw that line. Then I can repeat this. I need see, that's just not sharp enough. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you just got to do it by hand, but I'll try. I want something goes like this and then arches up. Something like that. And if I can't find one that works, the small one, I just pull out a different one and try it. Sometimes the smaller one will give you a little bit tighter curve. The problem with doing it by hand is that I'm not going to be consistent. And consistency is what really makes this look right. See, that part of it right there about matches my line. So we'll mark that. See if that don't look a little better. Yeah, see, I kind of like that. It's just off of being, it's just not quite straight. Just gives it a little bit extra flair that your eye follows. Of course, that side's a little different. But I bet you these aren't. Yeah, these are the same. I need 4 of them. And then on a couple of them, we're going to have to put in a straight line. But I can cut all of these out. Don't have to do it all right now. Might even be able to use these square pieces for something. They make good filler pieces. I try to reuse or use as much of this stuff as I can. Metal's expensive. And using this kind of stuff beats going and buying fresh metal to do something if I don't have it on hand. You can use almost 100% of this stuff if you really try. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut these out. I'll probably use the grinder to cut here. Just to make sure I've got them all the same. I got to double check where I'm supposed to cut it. But at any rate, between the bandsaw, the grinder, and whatnot, we'll get them cut out and weld them in. Alright, so I talked about doing gussets. Figured I'd show you how I'm coming up with these. Real simple. I'm using, this is the excess left over from cutting out my body mounts on the plasma table. But what it does leave me is some little squares or triangles, whatever. They've got the wrong curve to them. I'm not a fan of them curving that way. I want them to go the other way. I like to use little French curve templates. I just bought a pack of them here a while back at the art store many years ago. And I just find a line on here where I think it looks good. And typically, in order to repeat it, I'll mark on here my start and stop point. I'll mark it on the template itself so that I know where I started and where it needs to stop. And then I just draw that line. Then I can repeat this. I need see, that's just not sharp enough. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you just got to do it by hand, but I'll try. I want something goes like this and then arches up. Something like that. And if I can't find one that works, the small one, I just pull out a different one and try it. Sometimes the smaller one will give you a little bit tighter curve. The problem with doing it by hand is that I'm not going to be consistent. And consistency is what really makes this look right. See, that part of it right there about matches my line. So we'll mark that. See if that don't look a little better. Yeah, see, I kind of like that. It's just off of being, it's just not quite straight. Just gives it a little bit extra flair that your eye follows. Of course, that side's a little different. But I bet you these aren't. Yeah, these are the same. I need 4 of them. And then on a couple of them, we're going to have to put in a straight line. But I can cut all of these out. Don't have to do it all right now. Might even be able to use these square pieces for something. They make good filler pieces. I try to reuse or use as much of this stuff as I can. Metal's expensive, and using this kind of stuff beats going and buying fresh metal to do something if I don't have it on hand. You can use almost 100% of this stuff if you really try. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut these out. I'll probably use the grinder to cut here, just to make sure I've got them all the same. I got to double check where I'm supposed to cut it. But at any rate, between the bandsaw, the grinder, and whatnot, we'll get them cut out and weld them in. All right. So I switched gears a little bit. I got the gussets all welded in. I need to weld on the back yet. I need to weld on the front yet. But one of the other things I need to do was get all of the plumbing. I need to get some hosing up through here, the battery cable up through here. The exhaust runs right in this area. I'm a little concerned about the heat of the exhaust affecting the battery wiring and the other stuff I got to put over here, like the air lines. The main air feed needs to come in through this area. I'm not sure if it's stock or if it's something that they did back in the day when this was a real mini truck. I think at one time it had a pretty big stereo in it, and they did it to keep it from echoing. But at any rate, frame rails are filled with foam. So I'm using the heated end of this to rod my way through and just try to make it big enough to run everything. My goal is to get it up to the front where I can meet up with everything. Once I get it up there, I'm going to take some wire. I'm going to heat a nut up that the wire's attached to with the nut hot. Then I can pull the nut through. That'll make me a bigger hole. At least that's my game plan. We'll find out if it works. Yeah, but that's the plan. Let's give it a shot and see how it works. This is working pretty well. I've got it pushed up all the way to that corner right there. I'm that far in. The opening starts here. I can try to get to it from the other side. There's a couple of spots, but I'm going to keep after it. We'll see what we can get done. Alright, I got my rod all the way through. I don't know what kind of carcinogens that stuff puts out when it gets melted and burned, but I've been avoiding breathing it. Got fans going, blowing on everything, getting it away from me. Holding my breath, that kind of thing. But I'm gonna let that cool down so that I can attach a piece of string to it. I'll use the string to pull back through. I'll attach wire to the string, pull it back the other way, and then I can heat my nut up from one way or the other, it doesn't really matter, and pull the nut through. That'll create a big enough hole that I can start to actually get something meaningful through it. Probably got to try a couple of different times so I can get, you know, I need a space like that. So we're going to try a couple of different things to get something through there. I wish I could get it all out. That'd be nice. But I'm not sure how I could do that. But it would be nice to at least get a 1/2 inch air line through and the battery cable. The hydraulic lines for the cooler, they'll probably be okay. I can heat shield them with something, I guess. They're aluminum. Don't really think this transmission is going to run that hot. So we'll see. We'll keep after it. If I can get at least one of them through the airline, that would be helpful. The rest of them will probably survive. All right. So once my rod cooled, I attached the string to it with a bit of tape. I've already got it through here. I've already attached it to the wire. You probably can't see, it's pretty thick. Now, and then I've already got nuts attached to the end of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the string, and pull the wire, and we'll heat the nuts up, get them into the hole, and then we'll pull it through. Going to have to be quick with that. Before I heat it up, I've got something to attach to the wire to give me a little more pulling strength. But for now, let's get it in there, see if we can't pull it back through without breaking our string off. And I did verify, see there's the wire. All right. So now, take the string off. Attach our little pulling device. Like so. Okay. I'm going to heat this up. I'm probably going to go radio silent while I do it, but I'm going to cut that out of the video. And then once I get that hot, then we'll get it in there and pull it through. I got 2 nuts on there. I'm going to try to heat them both up. Of course, what I do with my... Oh, I went and took the... Alright, we got them hot. Got me some pliers to try to manipulate it a little bit since it is hot. Trying, come on. Well, it pulled through there. I don't know how big of a hole it made, but it seemed like it was probably pretty good sized. Went through pretty easily. So now I just need to get the string back through it and then see if we can't pull the cable through. Okay, as I showed you, I pulled the hot nuts through there. Don't laugh, not that funny. And then I pulled the wire back through. I had to use the rod to do it. I could get the wire most of the way, but it's pretty flimsy. This stuff's kind of broken up in there a little bit. But anyway, now with the wire back through it, I've got it connected to the cable. And we're just going to pull it through. I'm using a really heavy duty cable. It's like a number 4/0, I think it was, that I bought. And that's just because I'm sending power so far, but it's going to go all the way up. It'll go inside the cab. And then Sorry, I'm looking to see if maybe I should drill a hole here so it comes right up underneath the cab rather than running it all the way to there. And that might be a better option. Might need to just go ahead and make me a hole there and come out. That way it goes up and disappears into the cab rather than angling back. Because I know the cab ends right here. I'll probably do that. I'm going to change gears here real quick and then put that hole in there, because this is what the frame needs, more holes. But that way you don't see it. But all right, well, I got a little distracted and make a big mess. I was able to get in there with the rod once I put this hole in and get a lot more foam out of the way. And then I got the air in there and was able to blow more of it out, and a bunch of this just smegma stuff that was in there. Now it's all over the floor. But no big deal. I've got the power cord pulled through, as you saw. I put a piece of hose on it, old fuel hose. It's good and thick, tough, and keep it from wearing on that. I got the cable pulled through, the wire pulled through again. I got some Dash 8 hose that's going to come. We'll run it back through. It'll connect to the air tank. It'll connect to the air compressor. I'll probably put the T in down here somewhere so I can do my remote fill. And then, yeah, we'll have air from the compressor to the tank. Once it's connected to all the bags, we'll have a complete air system. Which really, to connect it to the bags, I just need to run the lines, and then once the body's on, connect them to the controller, and that'll be that. We'll have a full-on air system. The fuel system's done. The lines for the coolant system's done. I just need to do the final little bit up there. I think we are just going to cut the sheet metal out. I need to weld in the bead to hold the hosing on. As soon as all the hose connections are here in the clamps, we can put all of that together. Brakes are done from front to rear. I just need to do the front brake lines. They're here. I just need to put them on, and then we'll have brakes. Need to wire the fans in the back. The fans, actually, since the battery's back here, I'm just going to wire them direct to the battery. They run off of a negative ground switch through temperature that's in the line itself, so I can get all that wired up before we put the body on. I need to flare the transmission lines, put them in. Got a bunch of other stuff done. I need to go around, put all the bolts in for all my little clamps and stuff. Still need to do that. I need to do all of my behind the grill welding and start grinding that. I'm getting ready to do the rear body mounts. The bottom of the radiator support needs to be capped. Might not get that today. I need my 5/8 spacers for my lower links done. I need to tighten all of the brake fittings. Getting close though, man. It's gonna be so nice to get all of this done, be out of the body or out of the chassis, and on to working on just getting the body and wiring and things like that finished up. But it's coming along. All right guys, it's Sunday. We're back at it. We were at it all day yesterday, or most of the day. But I don't feel like the story's done for this video, and I don't think it's gonna be done until we put the body back on. And even though it's taking lots of little detailed steps to get there, I think I'm just gonna continue on through this, into this next week, until we put the body back on and get ready to move to the next step, which is getting it into being a runner. That being said, I've been working on the front end, and I'll show you guys in a second what I've been doing up there. Waiting on some stuff to finish out all the piping and whatnot, air and radiator system. Brakes and fuel are done. The battery cables ran. But right now, I decided to have a little fun and wire up the fans. I'll show you what I got. Bring you over here. I know, making you dizzy. Alright, so the fan that I bought comes with a relay, and the way it's wired, we got red goes to battery power, blue goes to the fans, black is a ground, and white needs to go to a 12 volt switched. So I'm hoping to find something that I can run or catch 12 volt power back at the back of the rig from the original S10 wiring. I don't know that I can do that. If I can't, then I'll have to run this all the way up to the front. It's just a long way to go, but it's only going to carry 12 volt. It's not going to carry a lot of power. That's going to go through these two, and obviously this one's fused, but this one goes to the fans. So there's 3 of them. I've got one connection here, the second one's going to be there, and the third one's there. All the wiring's going to be pretty close together. This is going to mount up into the box, the toolbox lid that we mounted to the bed. This black one, the ground, I'm going to have to change this. This needs to go away. But it's going to go to the temperature switch that I welded into the radiator line. And what that's going to do is when that switch closes, it will connect the ground to the chassis. This 12 volt will be hot during ignition. When this one closes, then this will close and power will go to the fans. So they won't run with my key off, but as long as my key is on, they'll run, as long as this switch is in the radiator system's hot enough and this switch closes. So it's really kind of, it's got the temperature system all built in it. It won't run through the ECM. I don't have to worry about any of that. They won't be running all the time, so the motor should stay and operate off its thermostat. In theory, everything should work wonderfully. We'll find out. But I'm going to show you how I wire these up. I'm going to go grab the other wires, and then I'll show you how to get a 3-way wiring system in there. Okay, so the way that I do this, I've got one wire already stripped, but I just take my strippers and I go all the way around one of the wires like this. Just use the proper size, and I pinch it so it cuts it in a full circle, and that breaks it free. And then I take a razor knife, and you got to very carefully slit down the length of it. It's kind of a pain. A little bit of patience though, you get it. All right. Once you got it broke free, once it breaks free, come on. There you go. We can remove the plastic. There we go. And now I got the bare spot of the wire. Now I'm going to do the blue because I already got the ends ready. You can take a pick, go through the center to separate it and get you a nice space. Then I take the other end. You can split them into 2. You can do this just, you can leave it as 1. I like to do it in 2. Put one end up through here, lay it flat, and you just twist them together. Like so. And now I like to put, this is liquid tape. I like to take a little bit of it and I'll put it right in this area over the top of it. Of course, now I'm going to have to let this dry before I can do it, mess with it again. But now I'll let that dry, and then once it's dry, I'll come back in with some wire loom tape and I'll go over it. Typically start in here so I get the Y, and then go down it, and then it'll be wired up nice and tight. It looks nice and clean, and I don't have to worry about having any issues with it coming loose or anything like that. To make the little pigtails, I'm using a stock style system. Just take the wire. You got the crimpers. And first you crimp down over the top of the wire. I like to start a little bigger and go one smaller. Well, that crimps the wire to the connector, and then you grab the coating. Oops. This is really done with aircraft too. It just helps make sure that the vibration doesn't cause the wire to break. And then I go one smaller. There. So now we got a nice tight fit. It's not going to break loose. A lot of times if you just grab just the wire, it'll break through vibration as it moves back and forth. It'll break right there at the end of the wire. I've had them with heat shrink on them where that broke and it would work, then not work as the wire moved back and forth. And only by pulling on it could I find it. Very irritating. It was on a motorcycle that vibrated real bad. It was a not a Harley, it was an ultra ground pounder I had, rigid, the 96 cubic inch S&S. And man, that thing was such a pain when this happened to it. Backfire and sputter, and yeah, it was unfun. And yeah, so now I need to attach these to the rest of the black ones, and then we'll be good to go. So that's how I do it. Once I get all this completed and get all of them done, then we will go ahead and show you how we put it inside the with the fans, and how I'm going to get all the other wiring to work. So let's get to it. All right, so it took me a couple of minutes. I had to switch my wiring around once I had it all together, because I didn't think about it initially, but these are puller fans on the stock system, and I need pushers because I've got it mounted reverse, and I can't mount it with the fans on the back and just swap the radiator side to side, because then all my fittings are on the wrong side. They all need to be facing up towards the engine. But not a big deal. I just reverse the wiring. That reverses the motor since they're DC. And now we can do this. And we got fans. I did check the switch. The switch does work. My only concern, I might add a ground wire to the tubing just to make sure I got a good ground to the frame. It should be good and well grounded. I mean, it's got 2 bolt locations going right to the chassis, so that should be plenty, but who knows. But at any rate, it works. The white wire is just temporarily attached to the battery. There, it's disconnected now. So this one, I got to get a good 12 volt ignition source, so the fans don't run constantly while this is in its closed position, and then it only runs when key's on. So there you have it. Fans are done. Now we got to work on the rest of it. All right, let's see if I can get rid of all my ums and static and whatnot. All right, so what was, what is, and what will be. So what was is I've been working on all of the plumbing. We finally have all the hoses connected back to the radiator for the radiator system. The hydraulic lines are in. I just have to make the 2 little connections and put the hose clamps on. Been wanting to wait on that before I make sure that the radiator's in. So the radiator hose connections are not made, but the rest of them are. Airlines are ran with the exception of the left or right front, passenger front, back to where the controls are going to be. I want to pull it through with the -8 hose that's going to come from the compressor to the tank. So I only have to do that once. But somebody forgot to order the -8 hose. Oops. And so it'll be here tomorrow. I don't know how I did that, but I did. And then I've laid in the wiring for the tail lights and the fuel up to the front. The headlight is laid in there, so I know where they're going to go. I just have to go through and make some clips and weld them in to hold the wiring in place. As for the wiring itself, I'm going to have to, I've got it kind of set out. It has basically 3 separate sections. The body section for the lights and fuel, which we already got. An interior section, which has the fuse panel. That's where all the power is going to come from. It's where all the switches are going to go to. And then there was an engine bay harness. I don't need most of the engine bay harness, as the engine came with its own. I'm going to have to play with that one and get it run into the cab and connected to all the connections on the motor. And then we'll have the ECM inside. We'll have all of that stuff, and then power to the ECM and all the various stuff like that. But I got to break all that down, strip out what I don't need, keep what I do, screw up a couple of times, and then yeah, it'll be lots of fun. But for now, what we need to do is show you how I make a couple of the different little tabs and bracket holders that I use to hold the various lines, because that's what I've been working on. Getting all the lines locked down so they're not vibrating, so they don't rub, heat protecting them where I think they're going to get hot, all of that good stuff. Just fiddly. It just takes a lot of time, making sure, you know, it's routed right and not going to bend or kink, all that good stuff. I've been doing some finish welding as well, but we're almost to the point that we can set the body back on. But for now, what we're going to do is show you how I make these clips, and then we'll move on to working on some body welding and hopefully get this thing set back on. All right, so what I've got some bolts that I welded together. In this case, I got 7/16 and looks like 3/8, and then I've got a couple of halves, and then a couple of smaller ones, a 1/4 and a 5/16. And what that does, it gives me the ability to make different size openings in these brackets. And what I'm trying to make is this right here. I should say trying, I've already made one, but the different size bolts gives me a different size opening here. This hole is where I use to spot weld it to whatever I'm attaching it to. And then you just slip the wire or hose, whatever, into here, and then you can push it back in or leave it. The reason 18 gauge or 19 gauge is because this has some fairly hefty spring to it. Too thin though, and it'll end up snapping off. But in order to make these, I've got the larger one. I want to hold the 1/2-inch hose for the air lines. So I stick it in here. I'm going about 1 inch past the bolt. And then I just wrap it all the way around, nice and tight, until it basically touches. And 1 inch might be a little bit much. If it is, you just cut it down. The other thing is, I typically try to round my edges up here so that the welded side's okay. You can leave it square, but the side that you're going to be messing with, you want to have it rounded. And then here, you can clamp it down, or you can stick it in up against something. In this case, I'm just sticking it up against the vise. Then I take me a piece of square, kind of like you're doing some blacksmithing. You just bang that down. All right. And now we've got something that looks like that. We just take a screwdriver, pry this back open a little bit. I'm going to move this hole down and shorten it up. But now we've got something that we can clamp our lines with. Easy peasy. Hey everybody. All right, I've been working and working and working. It feels like I ain't going anywhere. But I think we're finally there. Finally ready to put the body back on the chassis. I'm getting ready to swing the motor in, bolt it in place. So it's going to walk you through what I've gotten done, give you a little bit more of a close-up view. And then we're gonna drop the motor in, put the drive shaft in, get all of that bolted up, got to get the exhaust in, all of that good stuff. Hopefully finish plumbing the radiator system to it, and then we'll pick the body up, and then we'll swing the chassis back underneath the body and get them mated together. But let's walk you through. So I got all of this welded, ground, all of that. It's not perfect. I got some pinholes here and there, but I'm not going to spend any more time with it. If I was going to paint it, I'd feel comfortable using just a little bit of body cream, little sanding, and then prime and paint. I still need to do the front brake lines, but I'm gonna wait until the motors are back in to do those. Fuel lines, they were already done. I do have the wiring harness for the headlights. It's sitting in here. I need to weld in a couple of tabs and stuff, but I'm gonna wait until the headlights are on it so that I know exactly where everything needs to go and I don't do work twice. We've got the line run for, this is the dash 8 that's going to feed the air tank. We've got the lines ran for the front airbags. They go down through the chassis and back. You saw me with the battery cable before, the positive. We've got our hydraulic lines in. You can see we've got a couple of little tabs built. It comes all the way back. It's not perfect. I would have liked this area to have been a little neater. And it goes all the way to the back. I still need to put the hose clamps on. I just went and got them. I've got the line ran for the main feed from the tank to the controls, as well as the rear airbag lines. They're right back in here. Been using some of the little tabs that I've been making. So I do have the wiring run for, this is the fan and the controller for the air compressor. This is going to be my main air tank gauge that tells me how much pressure's in it. All of that then runs up the other side of the body next to the brake line. All of the plumbing is done, fuel lines. We got the plumbing connections in here. Hopefully nothing leaks. I got the air bellow onto the rear end. Brake lines are in, fuel lines are connected, fans are wired up. The rear tail light, while I need to change all of these ends to match mine, all of it is wired up and in place. It is connected all the way to the front. Oh, I need to connect the ground. Good thing I looked. So I need to connect that ground, but otherwise, you know, we're getting there. It's close. Radiator's in. That's the basics. Oh, before I forget, I know, I'm walking around. Threw a little pop of color on the body. Got a pretty good gloss to it. I got a couple of coats of clear on it. It's a 20-footer. I didn't do a lot of sanding. It would have been nice to, you know, if I wanted to do it right, I should have taken it down to bare metal, filled it and smoothed it and did all of that. I ain't got the time. I just don't. Not for this project. You know, if I'm gonna do that, I gotta do it on one that I can just take the time and do those things and not worry about the end date coming up. I've got to be able to just push it out and not worry about it. With that being said, I'm going to swing the motor in place, lock it down. I did an oil change on it. I've got new plugs in it. I haven't done the wires. I was going to do those once I've got it in, and got the headers and everything on it, or the manifolds. I did do a little painting on the, did a little paint here on these just to get it cleaned up a little bit. It's still pretty dirty. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I don't know if I'm going to try to pressure wash it or just leave it and not worry about it. But what do you want? I did change the oil. I need to put oil in it. Got a new filter on it. So it should start up and run just fine. Probably need to go through and check the fittings, make sure I don't have any that are loose. We got the vacuum modulator hooked up for the transmission. Well, I don't have the cover. I don't have the cover on the transmission for the kickdown, so I got to figure out something there. It's always something, one thing or another. Maybe I can fab one up if I got the right metal for it. We'll see. All right, so that's where we're at. Let me swing the motor in place. We'll go from there. All right. Well, good news. GoPro seems to be working correctly again. Not sure what knocked loose in there, but cool deal. I'll take it. Yeah, things have been rough. Kinda, sorta, not bad. I'd whine, but y'all don't want to hear that. I mean, it might be funny. I doubt it. All right, so things are together. Ran into a conflict here. I knew the transmission lines would be close to the exhaust. Wasn't too terribly worried about it. But this has the battery cable too close. So I'm gonna have to cut all that off and make another one of these and put it back here, maybe even two of them, so that I can pull this cable back away from there, just to make sure we don't have any melting going on. I got started. I wanted to, when I went to put the motor in, I remembered that I needed to modify my AC compressor, and so I went and decided I was going to take it apart, and well, that didn't go well. One of the seals inside was bad. It was swollen. As soon as I took it apart, you couldn't put it back in, so now I got to order seals, and so I can finish all that. So it's out. I'm gonna have to deal with it while it's in here. Kind of a pain, not the end of the world, but it would have been easier while it was out. Exhaust, as I showed you, was all in. One of my hoses, this one is too short. I bought a 12.5. I'm gonna have to order the 15, I believe, which is the next size up, and that should work out. It's not exactly like I wanted, but it's gonna work, and it should work well, you know. But at any rate, but that, once I finish the battery cable issue, then we should be able to go ahead and move it over to the chassis, or move the chassis over to the body and set the body back down. Don't know if I'm gonna bolt it all the way down yet, just because I might have to pick it back up. Maybe not. I need a T, but it occurred to me I can put it down here. I forgot to put the pressure pop off in my system, but actually I can put that T down here, and put the pop off there. That'll work fine. And then yeah, so we can get that done, get the body on it today, start working on the front end or wiring tomorrow. Should be good. We're gonna get this done one way or the other. Might be some really late nights. We're gonna make it happen. All right, I'm ready to start moving things around. As you can see, I've got the gantry over there. I'm gonna pick up the chassis, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna pick up the body, and then we'll move the chassis over. Hopefully it'll slide. It's not laying on the ground. No, it'll still move. It's close. Gonna take me a little bit of work. I'll try to put you on time lapse and see what we can get. Let's get to it. All right, I don't know if all of the slow-mo came in or time lapse as it is, but as you can see, we have it back together. Man, was that a bunch of work doing it by myself. I had things a little cattywampus on the body, and so trying to pick it up and move it and get the chassis rolled underneath it and turned around the corner was all kinds of fun. Got me a good sweat going on. No big deal. So this is going to wrap up this video. Body is back with the chassis. We've got about 1/3 of the wiring done. The brake system is 95% complete. I need to add in this last little bit and then put fluid to it and bleed it out. The coolant system, about the same. It's 98% complete. I need to add in one hose and tighten up a couple of clamps in the front. It'll be done. Fill it with fluid. Fuel system, we need to connect a couple of lines. It is done. Put fuel in it, put power to it. We got fuel. Air system for the motor, that's done. I clean the air filter. With that, it should run. Once we get power to the motor, get the wiring harness on it, that should make that thing fire up. Exhaust is complete. The air ride system is 80% complete. I need to finish up this section over here where the air inlet goes. We need to finish modifying the air compressor itself and get it all connected, and then we can put air into the system. Oh, we need to connect our controls. Once our controls are in, those other couple of lines are connected, we can make it go up and down. And we need to put front fenders on it, headlights on it. That'll be the last of the major fabrication. And then we got some aesthetic stuff in the back to work on. I need to get the sheet panel or the sheet metal around the wheels finished, and then that back section needs the tailgate, and the valance needs to be done, or something done with the valance. It's pretty rotten. And then we've got seats to put in it, seat belts in it. I've got some rhino liner. Then the top has to be put on it. So still an awful lot to do. Steering, I need steering. Yeah, might be kind of important. But we're gonna get to it. We got a month left, 4 weeks. I'm gonna be at it hard, because we gotta make it. Been saying we're gonna make it for months. Can't give up now. So with that, we're gonna sign out. Please like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.